Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Kính thưa chư tôn đức, tăng ni, giáo thọ sư Đại học Sakya Buddha chương trình Việt ngữ, cũng như tất cả các vị giáo sư phụ trách các bộ môn, và hôm nay trở thành vị giáo sư giám khảo của chương trình bảo vệ luận án tốt nghiệp trong lớp Master triết học Phật giáo của Đại học Sakya Buddha. Lời đầu tiên xin cầu chúc cho tất cả quý vị được nhiều sức khỏe.
The Master welcome everyone in the committee and the fourfold Sangha to the committee of Master Thesis Defense today, and would like to give best luck and good health to everyone.
Kính thưa quý vị, giờ đây là một giờ phút rất là thiêng liêng và cao quý, mang tính chất lịch sử của một nền học thuật non trẻ của Phật giáo Việt Nam tại Hoa Kỳ.
This moment is historical period of the Buddhist academic of the Vietnamese in the United States.
Trải qua một chặng đường 2 năm, thầy và trò của Đại học Sakya Buddha siêng năng học tập, và giờ đây là giờ đến cái giai đoạn mà chúng ta gặt hái cái kết quả thành tựu.
After 2 years of all efforts of studying and teachings from professors and students in the Sakya Buddha University, now it's time to harvest the success.
Cho phép chúng tôi được thay mặt toàn thể ban điều hành của Đại học Sakya Buddha thành tâm cầu nguyện cho tất cả các sinh viên bảo vệ luận án tốt nghiệp ở trong năm nay gặt hái được nhiều thành công tốt đẹp.
On behalf of the executive board, the Master would like to give the best luck to all students who defense for Master Thesis this year.
Và hôm nay đáng tiếc giáo sư Victor không được khỏe, cho nên không có tham dự ở trong chương trình này. Giờ đây cho phép chúng tôi được thành tâm mời giáo sư Tran, giáo sư John và giáo sư Gupta là 3 vị giáo sư giám khảo cho cái đêm bảo vệ luận án lịch sử của Đại học Sakya.
Because of the health issue, Dr. Victor Gabriel is absent today, so the committee will include Dr. Tenzin, Dr. Fees, and Dr. Gupta for today's.
Tiếp theo, cho phép chúng tôi được giới thiệu, xin mời giáo sư Tenzin thay mặt cho hiệu trưởng lâm thời trong khóa đầu tiên này có vài lời chia sẻ cùng với tất cả các bạn sinh viên cũng như tất cả các vị đang tham dự hôm nay, và sau đó chúng ta đi vào trong buổi chính thức bảo vệ luận án.
So the Master would like to invite Dr. Tenzin, the principal of the Sakya Buddha University, to have some words to the students today.
Most respected Venerable Master and all the Venerables and everybody here and my colleagues. So it's really honor and privilege to be here today, being invited back after a long break. And this is a very exciting time because now we are going to enjoy the fruit of the labors of the Master graduate students. They have a lot of responsibility. They are the first graduates, so they have to set a very high standard, right? If they don't set that, then I think that's going to affect our future graduate students. Do you need to
Được rồi, nói giáo sư nói được rồi, thầy hiểu được rồi.
Con quên á.
Thầy hiểu được rồi, nói giáo sư nói tiếp được rồi.
It's It's okay. Right. So I'm just here as a supporting faculty, and out of respect to the Venerable Master, and I myself am a Buddhist. I just don't know almost anything. But this is my devotion to Buddha and Buddhism, that I'm here just to do whatever I can do a little bit to support this Sakya Buddha University, that it, no, it's wonderful. The buildings have come up, Master showed us around, and so hope the Buddha's teaching and light will be spread everywhere once more, academically. So thank you very much.
Kính thưa đại quý vị, trong buổi hôm nay chúng ta còn là một buổi truyền hình trực tiếp nữa, và cho phép chúng tôi được thay mặt Đại học Sakya Buddha cũng như hội đồng giám khảo hôm nay và các bạn sinh viên xin gửi đến tất cả quý khán thính giả của Sakya Buddha University TV có một buổi thưởng lãm thật là lý thú, và trong đó chúng ta thấy tràn đầy đạo tâm. Giờ đây chánh pháp của Như Lai được hiển dương với một tinh thần học thuật chuyên nghiệp, và không làm mất thời gian của các vị. Xin mời vị sinh viên báo vở luận án đầu tiên hôm nay đến với chúng ta, đó là Phật tử phối hợp.
Good evening, everyone. I, Holly Vo, today would like to present my master thesis titled A Path from Dependent Origination to the Unconditioned in the Diamond Sutra. I will walk people go through the research problem, the research question and methodology of my study. And then we will discuss the authentic text of the Diamond Sutra. And then we will examine the overall semantic structure and doctrinal base of the sutra. And then we move to the next level of wisdom to find the wisdom from reflection on exegesis, and then the correlation between exegesis and praxis. And then we will go through a case analysis to have a close look at the praxis in adversity, in real-life problem. And before the conclusion, I will examine the responses to any unanswered research question that I didn't cover during the previous slides. And the last slide will be the conclusion. So, Diamond Sutra is, with the Sanskrit name, is Vajrayana Prajna Paramita Sutra. It is a sutra of 300 verses arranged in the collection of sutra in Mahayana Buddhism, and in the that is the collection of sutra for the perfection of wisdom. In the Chinese Tripitaka, it belongs to volume 7 and 8. So it is very influential in Mahayana Buddhism since 401 Common Era in China. It is the foundation of meditation traditions in East Asia and Vietnam too. It has a great value in self-salvific through the direct understanding and help people go through life vicissitudes. However, regardless of its potentials and values, the problem is contemporary discussion right now is always discussed in discrete themes, and there is no coherent systematic analysis for practice throughout the sutra. And also there is a raising concern on faithful texts and the connection to early Buddhism, especially in the Western world. So the research for the motivation for this study is for resolving contemporary human conditions. That means regardless of a lot of achievement in human intelligence and materials gain, but people cannot resolve the sufferings and conflicts nowadays. That's why I would like to conduct this study to identify a practical salvific path in the sutra to cultivate serene faith, transform dukkha, suffering, and guide practitioners toward life liberation in this life and toward the ultimate liberation. Throughout the study, I have 5 research questions on the essence of the Diamond Sutra. What is the essential, the core teachings in the sutra, so that people can remember for life to practice. Number 2, I would like to figure out the uniqueness of the Diamond Sutra in Mahayana Buddhism. And in the sutra, there is a question from Elder Subhuti expressing the concern about serene faith for the future being upon hearing the sutra. And I would like to raise that concern for today, contemporary time. The number 4 question is about the contemporary practice. How can we practice the non-abiding liberation path outlined in the Diamond Sutra today in the chaotic contemporary life? And lastly, I would like to figure out the role of the Diamond Sutra in the continuity of the Buddhist teaching. And the methodology I conduct in this research is covering 2 parts. One is hermeneutics, and the other one is application. So the overall methodology of this study is the threefold wisdom. It's the traditional Buddhist framework for learning. That means wisdom from learning Buddhist sutra coming from Shuddhamayi Pratya. That means from hearing the teachings. And layer 2 is the wisdom come from reflection, and lastly is the wisdom come from practice. That is from the supra mundane lens. From the mundane lens, from the intellectual world, I adopt the 3-layer textual analysis to analyze the sutra in 3 layers. Number 1, within the Diamond Sutra itself. Number 2, consider it as a churn as a Mahayana Sutra. And number 3, consider the text, the sutra, in the conditioned world. And lastly, for process, I have a case analysis to consider closely a real-life scenario of adversity, so that you can see how we apply it. And that case analysis will be analyzed through the framework of 4 Noble Truths, and through that we can examine the path of serene faith, transform suffering, and transcend it. Now, let's move on to the first layer of wisdom. That is the wisdom from the text of the sutra. But before we can look at the text and read it, we have to figure out and find out the authentic text of the Diamond Sutra. So in 401 or 402 in some documents, Kumarajiva is the first one who, he's a Kuchin Kalasli monk who brought the Diamond Sutra into China and firstly translated to Chinese. And after him, about a century later, Prince Chaomin divided into 32 chapters, and we all adapt that division until now. After that, within 2 centuries, we have 6 more translations. However, there is no Sanskrit text, the original text found at all. That's why during the colonial time in 1881, Max Muller, on the search for authenticity of the text, he tried to reconstruct the first Sanskrit text of the sutra from very late manuscript from Japan and China. And after him, in 1957, Kohns refined that Sanskrit text and add in 2 manuscripts around the 6th century in the Great Gandhara area. However, the point is he has, the reason he refined the original text and took a close examination because he has some doubt in Kumarajiva's translation. He suspects on the accuracy and fidelity of translation. He thought that Kumarajiva has a habit of translating, add in some stuff with emphasis. And he always, according to Kohns, he said that Kumarajiva always add in interpretation in translation. That's why he want to filter all that out and want to go back to the original one. However, later on, Chopin figured out that one manuscript used by Kohns is illiterate. That means there's a lot of grammar and syntax issue in the original manuscript. That's why in 1989, Chopin re-edited the Gilgit manuscript, a very important manuscript. And Chopin is also the one who set really high integrity in translation. He asked everyone to follow methodology so that we can, the next one can come in and see the accuracy and fidelity in translation. And in 1999, there's another manuscript found in the same area around the Great Gandhara, and by Harrison and Watanabe edited, and in combination of the Gilgit and the Shoyan manuscript in 2006, we have the first reliable, complete Sanskrit text constructed, with the first half from Shoyan manuscript and the second half from the Gilgit. And from there, we have, that is the foundational text for my study. So we just go through the intellectual path of finding the original text, and we see that there's a lot of difficulties in sutra translation and finding the text. It's very necessary to check reference on the prior translation, and there is very hard to make a translation without interpretation to convey the meaning across language and cultures. So that conclusion gives credit back to Kumarajiva edition. And the first edition in 201 or 204 by Kumarajiva, now considered as the master interpretive translation, with some note typo, and it is fixed in reprints nowadays in the monastery. So I add in this. I add in the summary as the referential basic for this study. Now we consider the text interpretation based on the summary of the authentic text that we just figured out. So the problem in text interpretation is the lack of structure and foundational doctrine. The common issue is everyone confine the Diamond Sutra in the system of Prajna Paramita Sutras, and especially focus on the 8,000 line sutra as the referential base. So everyone assumes that the Diamond Sutra is just a summary, a short version of the 8,000 line sutra. So the Western concern, because of that assumption, the Western scholar think that it's just a literacy document with a lot of paradox and missing concepts. For example, the concept of emptiness is found in 8,000 line sutra, but it's not defined anywhere in the Diamond Sutra, for example. On the other ways, the Eastern people follow the traditional exegesis. That means it's verse-based, and there's no structure at all. They just keep going line by line, top down. So it's hard to remember and systemize for practice. Yep. So in the study, we figured out that by looking at the overall structure of the sutra, we found that this is the inquiry-based sutra, based on the question of Elder Subhuti to the Buddha about how to train, proceed, and control their mind, the mind of Bodhisattva. And we figure out that the Diamond Sutra itself has inherent three-round semantic structures. The first teaching round, starting from verse 1 to 5, expounding the path, directly answer to the question of Elder Subhuti. And the second round cover sloka number 6, cover chapter number 6 among 32 chapters. That is the round for motivating practitioner to execute the path. And lastly, from chapter 7 to 32, this is the path of realization. So on this study, we will focus on the first round of teaching to figure out the core of teaching, and just take a look at the question of Elder Subhuti in chapter 6. We figure out that there is a connection, strong connection between the sutra to the early Buddhism that is grounded on the law of dependent origination. Because there's a lot of evidence in the sutra. First of all, the audience of the sutra is human, explicitly stated in the sutra. And in the final verse, verse of the sutra is a really short quote saying that all conditioned phenomena should be regarded as illusions. That means it refers back to the teaching of dependent origination, that this arises, then that arises, this ceases, then that ceases. So emptiness is actually, it just realized understanding grounded on dependent origination. And in my opinion, the sutra is not the focus on emptiness. That's why it's not defined explicitly in the text, because emptiness is just a state of attainment, where people who directly experience with true understanding of the sutra express their understanding about emptiness. For example, Nagarjuna say emptiness, like all existing things are empty of permanent and self-constituted nature, or according to Grandmaster Winang, emptiness is the emptiness of appearance and attachment in the minds of those who can place serene faith in the teachings. So, according to the text interpretation, we can figure out that the essence of the teaching is a path from dependent origination toward the ultimate liberation. So now we move to explore the meanings of the sutra based on the reflection on exegesis from experienced practitioners. And let me ask a question: like after the Buddha entered the parinirvana, who else in this world can explain the sutra perfectly? None, right? But we have the Sangha. And in this study, I consider the exegesis of Vasubandhu and Huinang. Vasubandhu is a scholar monk who wrote a lot of commentaries and set one of the founders for Yogacara, that is the foundation for today's Buddhist psychology. So he represents the scholar world and also the practitioner. On contrast, Huinang is the well-known practitioner, the patriarch of Chan meditation in China and East Asia. So let's consider the comment of these two masters. So Elder Subhuti asked how to stand, proceed, and control mind. In chapter 3, the Buddha answered that in two parts. That question in two parts. The practitioner should produce the mind of completely liberate on living beings from samsara to nirvana. And number 2, after liberating countless of living beings, there is no reason, perception of beings liberated in their mind. So it's kind of confliction. It's a paradox to our Westerner. But according to, we have to take a look at the Vasubandhu comments. That is the mind of, that mind, the vow of liberating all beings, is the abode of all bodhisattvas. That mind is broad, supreme, and constant. Why is broad? It's broad because it's cover, translating, add in some stuff with emphasis. And he always, according to he say that Kumarajiva always add in interpretation, in translation. That's why he want to filter all that out and want to go back to the original one. However, later on, Chopin figured out that one manuscript used by Kohns is illiterate. That means there's a lot of grammar and syntax issue in the original manuscript. That's why in in 1989, Strobin re-edited the Gilgit manuscript, a very important manuscript. And Strobin is also the one who set really high integrity in translation. He asked everyone to follow methodology so that we can, the next one can come in and see the accuracy and fidelity in translation. And in 1999, there's another manuscript found in the same area around the Great Gandhara, and by Harrison and Watanabe edited, and in combination of the Gilgit and the Shoyan manuscript in 2006, we have the first reliable, complete Sanskrit text constructed, with the first half from Shoyan manuscript and the second half from the Gilgit. And from there, we have, that is the foundational text for my study. So we just go through the intellectual path of finding the original text, and we see that there's a lot of difficulties in sutra translation and finding the text. It's very necessary to check reference on the prior translation, and there is very hard to make a translation without interpretation to convey the meaning across language and cultures. So that conclusion gives credit back to Kumarajiva edition. And the first edition in 201 or 204 by Kumarajiva, now considered as the master interpretive translation with some note typo, and it is fixed in reprints nowadays in the monastery. So I add in this, the summary as the referential basic for this study. Now we consider the text interpretation based on the summary of the authentic text that we just figured out. So the problem in text interpretation is the lack of structure and foundational doctrine. The common issue is everyone confine the Diamond Sutra in the system of Prajna Paramita Sutras, and especially focus on the 8,000 line sutra as the referential base. So everyone assumes that the Diamond Sutra is just a summary, a short version of the 8,000 line sutra. So the Western concern, because of that assumption, the Western scholar think that it's just a literacy document with a lot of paradox and missing concepts. For example, the concept of emptiness is found in 8,000 line sutra, but it's not defined anywhere in the Diamond Sutra, for example. On the other ways, the Eastern people follow the traditional exegesis. That means it's verse-based, and there's no structure at all. They just keep going line by line, top down. So it's hard to remember and systemize for practice. Yep. So in the study, we figure out that by looking at the overall structure of the sutra, we found that this is the inquiry-based sutra, based on the question of Elder Subhuti to the Buddha about how to train, proceed, and control their mind, the mind of Bodhisattva. And we figure out that The Diamond Sutra itself has inherent 3-round semantic structures. The first teaching round, starting from verse 1 to 5, expounding the path, directly answer to the question of Elder Subhuti. And the second round cover sloka number 6, cover chapter number 6 among 32 chapters. That is the round for motivating practitioner to execute the path. And lastly, from chapter 7 to 32, this is the path of realization. So on this study, we will focus on the first round of teaching to figure out the core of teaching. And just take a look at the question of Elder Subhuti in chapter 6. We figure out that there is a connection, strong connection between the sutra to the early Buddhism that is grounded on the law of dependent origination. Because there's a lot of evidence in the sutra. First of all, the audience of the sutra is human, explicitly stated in the sutra. And in the final verse, verse of the sutra is a really short quote saying that all conditioned phenomena should be regarded as illusions. That means it refers back to the teaching of dependent origination, that this arises, then that arises, this ceases, then that ceases. So emptiness is actually, it just realized understanding grounded on dependent origination. And in my opinion, the sutra is not the focus on emptiness. That's why it's not defined explicitly in the text. Because emptiness is just a state of attainment, where people who directly experience with true understanding of the sutra express their understanding about emptiness. For example, Nagarjuna say emptiness, about emptiness, like all existing things are empty of permanent and self-constituting nature. Or according to Grandmaster Winang, emptiness is the emptiness of appearance and attachment in the minds of those who can place serene faith in the teachings. So, according to the text interpretation, we can figure out that the essence of the teaching is a path from dependent origination toward the ultimate liberation. So now we move to explore the meanings of the sutra based on the reflection on exegesis from experienced practitioners. And let me ask a question. Like after the Buddha entered the parinirvana, who else in this world can explain the sutra perfectly? None, right? But we have the Sangha. And in this study, I consider the exegesis of Vasubandhu and Huineng. Vasubandhu is a scholar monk who wrote a lot of commentaries and set one of the founders for Yogacara, that is the foundation for today's Buddhist psychology. So he represents the scholar world and also the practitioner. On contrast, Huineng is the well-known practitioner, the patriarch of Chan meditation in China, and East Asia. So let's consider the comment of these two masters. So Elder Subhuti asked how to stand, proceed, and control mind. In number 3, in chapter 3, the Buddha answered that in 2 parts. That question in 2 parts. The practitioner should produce the mind of completely liberate on living beings from samsara to nirvana. And number 2, after liberating countless of living beings, there is no reason, perception of beings liberated in their mind. So it's kind of confliction. It's a paradox to our Westerner. But according to, we have to take a look at the Vasubandhu comments. That is the mind of, that mind, the vow of liberating all beings, is the abode of all bodhisattvas. That mind is broad, supreme, and constant. Why is broad? It's broad because it's cover the liberation for all beings without discrimination. It's supreme because it it brings people to the top attainment. That is the ultimate liberation. It's constant because the bodhisattva will execute that vow tirelessly until all beings liberated. There is no paradox at all because for practitioners, they know that with the mind of constantly think of liberating people to the ultimate liberation, there is no space and time to think about, to raise a perception, any perception about who's being liberated or who liberate, because they just focusing on doing that vow. And how to practice that vow in reality. The Buddha gives the means of practicing. It is non-abiding giving. That means not abiding to any objects in the 6 sense fields. According to Vasubandhu, there's 3 types of giving. That is giving materials, giving fearlessness, and giving Dharma. And by practicing non-abiding giving, the merit of Bodhisattva is as immeasurable as space. Why? Because according to him, the true meaning of giving is attained. But we have to consider the next chapter to see what is the true meaning of giving. In chapter 5, the Buddha asked Subhuti and received the answer from him and confirmed that it showed that the Tathagata must be seen through non-mark among marks. Why? Because Tathagata is the suckness, the unconditioned, that is like space, is formless and cannot be grasped or seen by marks or forms or perceptions. But according to Grandmaster Winang, not only Tathagata, but also all living beings share the pure essence. But because of different behaviors and attributes, that pure essence is hidden and cannot be seen. However, just those who perceive this true essence in living being can practice non-abiding giving tirelessly because they see that pure essence and they feel the sufferings of people who have the essence in them, but because of illusions, they suffer through samsara. That's why they give. They can give without abiding in anything, and that is the true meaning of giving. And by practicing it, the practitioner, the bodhisattva, can foster wisdom. So that is the essence of the sutra. And through the first round of teaching from chapter 1 to chapter 5, we figure out the unique points of the sutra among Mahayana Sutra. The first thing is the sutras express the practice, the direct understanding rather than abstract concepts. That's why no one can find the definition of bodhisattva emptiness in the sutra at all. Don't try to look, because by practice you understand what it is. Number 2 is the logical coherence across the sutra. Westerners try to understand, to figure out the logical forms of the verse, and a lot of things they feel it's like a paradox, but they didn't see that the logical coherence of the sutra is the emphasis of the essence over the marks. By understanding that, they see the whole logic through the sutra. And finally, is the feasibility of practicing non-abiding giving. Because by the explanation of Vinang, it becomes very reachable for practitioner to practice it, because everything is initiated from a serene faith in the pure essence of the living being. Even just partial true essence of living being is realized. That is the first serene faith that motivates the whole path of practicing. And by practice giving, keep doing it, people will see the deeper, will have the deeper understanding of the shared pure essence among beings. And through that, they cultivate the perfection of wisdom and pursue the unconditioned. So we just go through the essence and the uniqueness of the sutra. However, go back to the contemporary society, and we will see some realistic concern. What society we are living right now? We are living in the world that people are craving unconstrained resource. We have a lot. We achieve a lot in intellectual stuff. We have AI. We have a lot of material gains now. However, everything with a lot of gain right now, we cannot resolve our conflicts, our sufferings, and even now, in the peaceful time for us, there's still a war happening in the Europe. That's why and it's normal, because in this conditioned world we have desire, we have craving, and then it leads to grasping, and then we have the pursuit of fighting things, and we lead to conflicts, and then we fight for it, and then we have dispute, and we have wars. That's what the Buddha teach already in the Mahanidana Sutra. And also with grasping perceptions, we have fixed perception in concepts, in logic. Like I just explained, people keep talking about paradox in the sutra, cannot understand it, try to find the meanings by the text, not practicing at all. And finally, we have the analytical constraint in the word, because modern scientific belief in materials and even mind, they think is a biochemistry system, and they assess the Diamond Sutra through incomplete historical evidence, in literacy comparison, in logical inference, reasoning stuff, not the pure wisdom at all, and what the Buddha already warned us in the discourse to the Kamala, that don't judge everything by such a things, because there's a lot of matters that go beyond and it needs the pure wisdom to consider. So, go back to the research question number 3, the concern of Elder Subhuti, because after listening to the teachings of the Buddha about how to stand, proceed, and control mind, Elder Subhuti asked back to the Buddha that if in the future there any living being upon hearing this teaching can truly understand the sutra at all. So even with encouragement and a lot of extensive means, the Buddha confirmed that yes, there will be living beings raising a true thought, a thought of true understanding of the sutra in the future. However, we should take that question of Elder Subhuti as a critical warning to practitioners. Why? As a practitioner, we should know that craving, grasping, and beliefs in tangible results can be the hindrance to liberation. And also it should be the reminder to spiritual master, because a lot of master, while lecturing the sutra, skip that line, saying that even now there's a lot of people hearing the Diamond Sutra and understand it. But remember what Vasubandhu and Vinang just said, that true understanding is not by listening to the sutra and reflection on it, but must be achieved by direct experience. So lastly, we move to the last layer of wisdom that's achieved from praxis of the Diamond Sutra in adversity. So I will go over it quick, because anyway, cannot go deep into this one. It's too complicated. So I consider a case of a prisoner who been in the prison for 18 years, and he shared the room with 200 people, and every night he have to sleep under bright light like this, and have to listen to snores, teeth grinding, yell from the nightmare of 200 other inmates, and it's kind of endless torment to him. So the root cause, of course, is the attachment to the old pleasant feelings in the past. And because he grabs on it, it becomes really suffering when that experience is gone and have to experience something different on the opposite. There's a lot of way to cease that suffering in theory. For example, we can practice mindfulness, we can realize craving and calm by breath meditation. However, that's just a theory, because all meditation like that require a proper environment with the proper light and quiet place, and a lot of guidance from master and supported from friends. And however, it doesn't happen in the prison at all. So that's why I offer the non-abiding path. I'm saying during the while suffering for a long time in that environment, there are two things they can find. That number one is they can see, because there's no other ways for them to go back and contact with the acquainted people. Now it's time for them to look at the unknown people around them, and they will see the values of very small, wholesome deeds. And that is the way for them to see the partial, pure essence in the people who behave differently as they expected. And number two, under the torrents of dependent origination, they see the suffering is crossing the capacity of a person or a group of person, but is under the power of dependent origination. They see there is no boundary between a person and others. It's just a shared suffering across everyone, the empathic one. Everyone is immersed in the suffering. So there will be a moment when they are immersed in sounds, forms, and all the objects that attack them echo in their mind a verse of sutra saying, "None abiding in anywhere." Not abiding to sound, to form, to taste, etc. Then it's like a ringing bell to them. Why? It's a awakened moment. Why? Because it's true to that moment. It's very true. That's why they awaken. Even it's just one moment of discernment, but it's time for them to reconsider everything. And all the energy from suffering will be converted to wisdom. And under that stream of discernment, they change all the experience they have in the past, all the good moments, and all the good deeds of people around them, including the unacquainted one. And all of them resonate into a big energy of wisdom. And under this wisdom, they can understand the sutra. And at the time, the Bodhisattva vow arisen. I claim that the Bodhisattva vows does not appear in a temple, in a big ceremony, but in the living hell, where people suffer, awaken, and see the true values of people. And after that, they can transcend the suffering and giving, practice giving. You can ask, amid adversity, what else they can give to people? They possess nothing. They live in a constrained room with 200 persons. What can they give? According to Vasubandhu, 3 types of givings. Besides materials, we can give fearlessness. We can give Dharma. In this case, the thing that people around him need is giving fearlessness, because everyone is fear. That's why they cry and they yell in nightmare, things that they don't do when they're awake. Because this practitioner understands the illusionary of all phenomenon. That's why he's not fear anymore, because he's calm. Because of his composure, he can expose positive energy to everyone. That is the way he gives fearlessness to people. Imagine in the prison when people suffer and fear, what happens if everyone see a person with composure among chaos and chaotics? According to psychology, people can learn by watching, by observing. By seeing one person sitting with composure amid adversity, people will follow and calm down. That's why he can radiate his positive energy to everyone in that room. And they will mimic him, behave like him, calm down, and radiate the positive energy back to him. That's why, starting with one beam of wisdom, now he can get a lot of wisdom from people around him. And that is the way wisdom is nurtured and increased until reaching the perfection of wisdom. So, I already went over question 1 to 3 about the essence of the sutra, the uniqueness of the sutra, and the concern of Subhuti. And in the last slide, I cover how to practice non-abiding liberating path in practice in reality already. So I skip number 4. Now go to number 5. What is the role of the Diamond Sutra in the continuity of Buddha's teaching? As I go over from the previous slides, the sutra connect to early Buddhism. It aligns closely to Four Noble Truths as we go over in the case analysis, and is grounded on dependent origination. And also, for the future, it gives a skillful means for all practitioners to return to introspection, recognize the true essence in all beings and in themselves, and then embark the self-liberating path, not alone, but with all living beings and their friends at Kalyanamitra. So in summary, finally, in this study, I go over a lot of paths, at least 3 paths. The first one is the intellectual path to figure out the authentic text of the sutra, so that we can settle the faith in the teaching of the sutra. Number 2, we already go through the path of realization based on reflection on the exegesis from the experienced practitioners. And lastly, we go through the bodhisattva path in real life in a prison. And we all see the role of liberating path, because it is among 75 phenomena introduced by Vasubandhu. There's only 3 unconditioned, and a path. The path is important because it connects the conditioned world to the unconditioned. Without the path, no one can achieve the ultimate liberation. So we'll already go over the findings to 5 questions about the essence, the uniqueness, the practical concern from Elder Subhuti, how to practice it in real life, and lastly, the role of the sutra in the continuity of the Buddhist teaching. The limitation of this study is, number 1 is the language barrier, because for a Buddhist study, Buddhist scholar and practitioner, not understanding European languages And classic Chinese is a big hindrance because there's a lot of source written during that time. And also, my study limit in only the first round of the teachings from chapter 1 to chapter 6 only. So that's for the future direction. Someone can focus on the second round, that is chapter 6, so that we can explore more means to all practitioners nowadays. Or people can extend their study in the third round from chapter 7 to 32 to align the teaching with the Bodhisattva stage. Or someone can focus closely to chapter 9 to align with the Eightfold Path and Four Fruits of Shavana. The strength of the study is the methodology. At least I give you a path to trace my error and feedback. And another strength of this study is the balance between traditional Buddhist study and different lens of insights. Last verse is the last verse in the Diamond Sutra. All phenomena are illusory. However, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Holly. That's a wonderful presentation. We'll take a few moments for the panel to mark the grading, and then we'll have a few questions. So one question I had was the work of Harrison and Watanabe. Is that, can you say more? Were they working together or independently of each other? And can you say more? I was really interested in Harrison's work when I was reading your paper. So I just wanted to know more, how did they work together, or, yeah.
This is the work on the manuscript, the Sanskrit text. The manuscript is there's a lot of missing stuff and error, so they have to edit it so that they convert it into Latin stuff without missing gap stuff. Watanabe worked on that manuscript first, but at the end he collaborated with Harrison. So that is the collaboration between the two. But the translation and the proposal of reconstructing the complete Sanskrit text from first part from this manuscript and the second part from the Gyuche is belonging to Harrison alone.
So the original material was written in Sanskrit text?
Yeah, it's some maybe leaf or palm leaf, or I don't know, or maybe stone or some old books, papers, but there's a lot of error missing and damage. That's why this is the edition, this one edition.
Right. Okay, thank you. Do other members of the panel have questions?
I have a question. Would you clarify the non-abiding giving one more time, please?
Yes, non-abiding.
But primarily in relation to 6 sense fields. And would you consider if non-abiding giving would lead to release, meaning the opposite would take you back? Abiding giving would not provide you with that. So,
Non-abiding giving, that means first of all, first layer, I give to people without discriminating the sound I hear from them, for example, or the appearance. That is close look to the sixth sense fields. But overall, non-abiding giving should be not abiding to the subject who give, not abiding to the object to give, and not abiding to the action of giving at all. Because if we abiding on anything, that means we desire, we grasp on that, expect for return. And even there is merit, but it is the merit for the next, that is the fruit for the next life. Because of designing and grasping on that giving, it leads to becoming, rebirth, aging, death, and then the circle of samsara. Am I answer your question?
Any other questions?
You go ahead. First of all, I want to congratulate you for doing an extensive research on diamond, we call it cutting sutra. In the Tibetan it exists, it's called Torji Choba. Yours is a very structured presentation. I can see you put a lot of work there. Now my question is about the practical application of Diamond Sutra to everyday life. That's what you are talking about with the example of a prisoner who practiced for however long. Okay. Given the premise that Diamond Sutra is not user-friendly, easy to understand, because the subject matter is very profound, isn't it? It's about dependent rising. It has many levels of meaning. So you also said it's not simply through listening to master's teaching we can understand it. We really have to contemplate and meditate, right? So my assumption is that there are not many who are really going to do all those three things. It's really hard to find people listening to Dharma teaching these days. Now, how many are going to do the contemplation, and then how many are really going to do the meditation, right? That's required to find the selfic path to liberation, isn't it? So what do you think about that? When it comes to practice, it is tough.
Right, it is tough. But Dr. Gupta already asked very important question about non-abiding giving. So the problem of practicing the Diamond Sutra is not how much you give, but the way you give. Not abiding to me as the giver, someone as the receiver, the object I give, like how much is that? 5,000, 50,000, something like that? Not important, but not abiding to that object, the object being given, and the action of giving. If we can do that, then it's already, that person is already the practitioner of Diamond Sutra. That's number one. Number two, I already talked about the adversity in the prison, but are we living are we living in the world without constraint at all? We are living in constraint, right? We're never happy with the room we have, the house, in even many houses, we always think that we are living in a constraint, we're confined by a lot of things. Even for the leader of the whole country, he still thinks it's not enough. He needs to expand his territory. That's why we are living in a prison. Just the point if we realize that or not. And lastly, we always in our life will suffer some adversity. For example, we will encounter death alone. We will encounter the death of someone you love. That is a big loss, an irreversible loss. How can we prepare for that? Diamond Sutra is the skillful means for that moment.
Okay, let me have a quick follow-up question, then I will yield to the venerables, okay? Because I have too many questions, but I don't want to take too long. We already went long. So non-abiding giving, does it really mean that, let's say, I give $100 to the venerable, right? I don't think about $100. I don't think about me giving $100. I don't think about venerable receiving $100. Is that what it is? Not thinking about it at all. One who is receiving what is being given and who is giving it, just here, $100. Is that a non-abiding giving? But that seems so simple.
Yeah, that's why you can do it, but will you do it or not? Because people think that they're not abiding to anything. But if you're not abiding to anything, how do you remember that you already give someone $100? That is the perception already arised in mind. Okay. That means you have some attachment already. What we mean is the ultimate meaning of non-abiding giving is giving as a habit because it's needed for the benefit of people. That's why I give it. But not thinking about anything at all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Holly. Great work. Good job.
A mindfulness-based intervention for anxiety. And the presentation's outline, we will go through this process. First, I will go through the thesis and the objective. After that, we'll look into the research questions, the background, the literature, findings, and then finally will be the weakness, strength, and future research. My first one, the thesis and objective. Thesis. My thesis is that mindfulness-based therapy, specifically breathing, meditations, can it be served as equally effective or as an adjunct therapy to current medications to manage anxiety disorders. And the objective of my project is to connect Buddhism with the current modern contemporary healthcare field. So that's why I want to bring this topic, because as my background in pharmacy, I would like to connect my job and as well as Buddhism into the healthcare field and prove this effectiveness and usefulness. And the importance of this project is that we will focus on the mindfulness of breathing. We will go into it why I believe this is important later on with the literatures, because I believe that focus on one specific field and research thoroughly, it can provide a stronger evidence. And the current knowledge is that if you were to use Google Scholar and just type in mindfulness for anxiety, you would get 199,000 of the research results, which is proving it is an important topic. The contribution of this project is that I hope that it will be utilized into the healthcare field. And as Buddhism, we can contribute a great beneficial contributions into the healthcare field. The research questions, we will have 4 research questions that I address into my project. The first one is how mindfulness-based therapy compared to medications in terms of effectiveness for the treatment. And secondly, should it be using adjunct? Adjuncts is another way of saying, should it be used together or complement each other? And third is, can mindfulness breathing transform anxiety? We will look into the evidence for that. And lastly, what is the connections between traditional Buddhist practice and the modern health field? And now we're going to look into the background. What is anxiety? Anxiety is defined by researchers is generalized. It is defined as a condition that is perceived threat, that it causes fear because the person is being fearful of something that is from their memory, the mental state of beings. It is not really happening. It's something perceived that it can happen. And this cycle is a cycle, is continuations, and because of the continuations, they can have panic attack. And panic attack is a conditions that arise from the fear itself with anxiety, and it can affect their social life, relationships, and work. And there are 40 million people worldwide that is currently experiencing this. US alone is 40 million. So you can see that the impact is very great. And in terms of the cause, it can be due to stress, family, worry, violence, traumatic, also from memories, something they have experienced before, that it just comes into the memories and then they react to it because they have no control. And of course, I listed also the types. There are like 4 main types: phobia, social, panic, generalized, but we will not get into details for that. In terms of symptoms, physical and mental. So physical, they will have a fast heartbeat, sweating, lose control. Mental, they will feel that because they are being attacked, so they will have an escape and avoidance. And in that area, their brain chemical at that moment is also changing. We will definitely get into that area. That's the important part of this project, because mainly the treatments is where it's focused on the brain chemicals. At treatments, there are currently 2 treatments that are currently used, even though there's others, but I will focus on 2 because these are the most commonly used. One is pharmacology, which means medications. The other one is mindfulness. Mindfulness, I just defined, according to psychologists, is way of you can control your emotions when negative events has arise. And it is a bare attention that you do not react to it, but you know it and you observe it. And that is similar also to Buddhism, where Thich Nhat Hanh, he mentioned is a bare attention of the present moment, as well as other Buddhisms, such as the Therasoma, in his commentaries in terms of for the suttas about the breathing sutra, which is called the Mahasatipatthana. I believe that's the one. We'll get to that. And I put the abbreviations MBI, MBT. We will not get into that. It just gives you an idea. These are different types of mindfulness out there, because as the clinicians and psychiatric is been utilizing into their practice, they create the names just because to focus on specific thing. For example, MBSR is mindfulness-based therapy for stress, and it's just to just manage stress only. And then MBCT is for cognitive, is the way they change their mind. So to react or to accept a negative event. So we will not get into that. We don't have, due to the time constraint. The next one we will look into is the literature. So the literature, I divided into 2 categories. One is the literature from the scientific, and the other one is going to be Buddhism. Because what we're going to use here is mixed methods. So mixed method is a way that I use the analyzing and the data, and then from 2 different sources to prove one point. which is it's the effectiveness of mindfulness for anxiety. And medications that we're going to look at is the SSRIs. These are just abbreviations. These are classes. If you go into details or you medical field, you would need to look into further. But in general, SSRI, SNRI, there are the names of the neurochemicals, which I mentioned earlier that we will focus on this. So SSRI is a serotonin. So there's the serotonin chemicals. That SNRI, we're dealing with serotonin and norepinephrine. And secondary is the TCA, mean tricyclic. It's also acting on the serotonin level, and BZD is another name for benzodiazepine, which is acting on the GABA level in the brain. And that level changes and effectiveness in the brain chemicals will help them to calm down and lower the activities when they are in a panic situation. And you will see on your left-hand side that when we're in a panic mode, the chemical called serotonin is regulating mood and sleep, is lowers. As well as your dopamine is a rewarding chemical, it will lower as well. So that when you're fighting, of course, like you cannot control your mood, you will feel hopeless and you want to escape. And norepinephrine is usually, it keeps you alertness and for you to function. But in this case, it will be more than what is used to. It's out of balance. So this will make you have a panic attack and increase your heart rate, shortness of breath, etc., like we've mentioned before. And I also put the example, a few medications. One of them is escitalopram. We will look into that medication. There's very interesting research on that I found. The next one will be venlafaxine, is an example from a SNRI. If you looked into the above that I mentioned, the classes, so each one of those classes, there are each one medications that represent each class in my study. And in general, since we don't have time to go into each of them, in general, the effectiveness of these medications takes 1 to 6 weeks to be fully effective. Even though each medication itself, the full amount being absorbed into your system, it can be from 3 minutes to 9 hours. But that doesn't peak because your symptom, it takes time for it to absorb your body and truly control your emotional state, because it is acting on our neurochemicals. So it takes some time, and there are research. If you look at something called package insert, they will let you know the clinical trials, the side effects, the warnings, how long the clinical trials was conducted, and how effective it is. All of these are proven to be effectiveness. But some of them are using as off-label, meaning that it is not approved by the FDA, but doctors and prescribers still use them because they are effective. Because on top of that, because clinical trial usually takes too long for it to be approved, so therefore they can use in certain cases as off-label treatment for anxiety. And in terms of the dose, it is increased as needed, meaning the persons, if it's not enough, they will get more doses. And the more medications we take, the higher chance we will have side effects. And some side effects that I've listed here, a few main ones is there's BBW, means black box warning, is a major one, such as even for especially for the second the line of the medication treatments, they are most effective, but they are the one with the warning it can cause suicidal thoughts. And people have suicide from taking these medications, and they didn't know, and clinical trial has proven it. So that's a warning they have to put on every package inserts. And also it causes dizziness, nausea, restlessness, panic, and mania attack. And the internal literatures for the mindfulness, there are researchers that they research, such as clinicians. The data that I've collected, there are either psychologists, psychiatrists, or a doctor that working in this field. And I've listed one of the trial usually it takes 8 to 12 weeks for their trial. They don't go longer than that. And usually in one trial, they would use multiple mindfulness methods, such as breathing, body scan, yoga, together, and alternating between the mindfulness group and the control group. The control group, usually the one that does not do anything. They are the one that being guided or just giving information, but they are not giving instruction how to do mindfulness and what should he be focusing on and how to be done correctly. And in that trial, usually it's 45 minutes, practice daily, and they have to meet up once a week for 2.5 hours. And the method they said is sit comfortably, relax. It can be during you're sitting, you're lying down. Whenever you feel comfortable, you can practice following your breath, following your breath, breathing in, breathe out. That they have to follow it through without any distractions. That is supposed to be meaning the purpose of the method. It's supposed to design, and the participants supposed to follow that routine. And in that, they use tools, different tools, like the Hamilton, the M-Star. Those are the tools they assess to measure anxiety. And those tools are used different in each different trials. It depends on the group and the person that conducting the trial. In the assessments of the anxiety, they also, some of them assess the mindfulness in terms of connections to the brain structure as well as brain chemicals. And also, different trials, if you looked into it, they have different settings, like different university, different hospital, different country, even you use through contactless way to conduct their trial and study. We will also touch base on that a little bit. It is quite an interesting aspect for mindfulness therapy nowadays. It can be done in groups, but there are also be done in personal times. Since these tool assessment, they are questionnaires to ask the participants how they feel, and but based on that, they have the scoring, and that's how they get and obtain the results. In terms of Buddhism, I focus on two of the sutta. I would use the Anapanasati and Mahasatipatthana. So these the two of the suttas. I use them because they are the sutta of mindfulness breathing. They talk about mindfulness. Anapanasati talks about the 16 steps of mindfulness breathing. And Mahasatipatthana also talks about 16 steps of breathing, but it is more than the 16th step. But in this study, I use those two because I want to just use breathing exercise and focus on that one point. And the 16th breathing exercise, I also narrow down only using the first 4 steps. Because the first 4 steps is observe and know if it's breathing long. Second, observe and know if it's breathing short. Third is observe and know if the whole body is breathing. And fourth is calming the body. Because within that, the venerable of the one of the venerable that I've read, Thanisaro, he said that there is a connections of the 16 breathing exercise to the 4 level of vipassana. So vipassana is mindfulness body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind, and mental object. And the first 4 steps of the 16 breathing exercise is correlated to the first part of the vipassana, which is the mindfulness of the body. And mindfulness of the body, as we've seen, ends with mindfulness of calming body. And anxiety is a state where body has hyperactivity. The body is not calm. The person's anxious. We want to control the body, calming the body down first. So this project, I would just focus and just there. We're not going to go into further. And one way of we can do this is counting. Vasubandhu also mentions this. We can do the counting 1 through 10, and we follow. If we bring it back, if we lost track during the process, but it will work. The more effective it is consistency It has to be practiced daily, and when it means fully effective is a person is able to follow the breathing throughout the whole sessions without losing or sidetracks. In the 20 to 30 minutes is the recommendations that I get from Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. He did mentions about that, and he said at least 3 months to be fully effective in or achieve at least some level of effectiveness. So that's his recommendation, because in the end, they said that the purpose is for us to detach from our fear, to bring calmity by emotionally control our mental state. And the next slide is the findings. The finding is the one that I will answer the first, my 4 questions that I've mentioned earlier. So how mindfulness-based is compared to pharmacology in terms of effectiveness? They're both effective. They are effective. Pharmacology is effective in the short term. Short term because the trial is only for 8 weeks. Some of them extended to 16 weeks. But in terms of that is that there's the mindfulness has more side effects. There's always side effects. And comparing to mindfulness, it can increase the same level of brain chemicals as if with the medication itself, such as it increased dopamine, rewarding, it makes you happier. Melatonin helps you to sleep well and balance your serotonin, which is the emotional regulation, and it reduces the norepi, which is making you feel anxious. So it balances that out. The gamma aminobutyric acid also helps with to the hyperactivity by lowering the level. And another study, like I said, it's there's one study is equally Dr. Hodge, Elizabeth Hodge. She conducted a study by mindfulness effectiveness comparing to escitalopram. Escitalopram is a first line medication in treating anxiety. It does have black box warning for suicidal, but it is very effective. So she's the one that compared that trial, and I have not found any other trial that comparing direct with the mindfulness to medication therapies. And I think this trial is very important because her result is found that they are both equally effective. And I think that answers the first questions, that it is effective, and as well as the second question as well. So moving on to the third is, can mindfulness breathing transform anxiety? And the fourth as well, connection between traditional Buddhist practice and the modern health field. Yes, it can transform anxiety because mindfulness can actually interact with our brain chemicals, and all we need to do is follow our breathing. And that is so accessible. It is not any distracting. It is pure. It is always with us and everyone with us. You can practice anytime, anywhere. It can strengthen our blood flow, and also it in the long term, it can actually brings your level emotional control higher, and you will feel more calm in stressful situations, and as well your daily lives, as well as your increasing your quality of life. And it can be measurable, like we said, through conducted literature and research. And currently, the $48 billion US alone spent in 2013 on mindfulness and on anxiety treatment. So mindfulness can contribute and lower the cost in the health field. And the limitations of my research is that there's limited resource, even there's a lot, but then some of the inclusions areas, they have, the methods are not what I'm looking for. It's a different type of mindfulness. Wide range of population, different setting, different country, so it cannot represent for the whole world in terms of its studies. The strength, it is proven that Buddhism and modern health field can be connected. And there is a value of Buddhism teaching, especially breathing meditations, can help and contribute small part changes into the mental health field. And the future research, I've hoped that they would have more research specifically on different type of medication versus different types of mindfulness therapy, not just breathing alone. And the further extended study should be also on focusing on the rest of the 16 steps of mindfulness of breathing, because just 4, and we can see that it has such tremendous power to transform anxiety. And least but not last, regulate the breath, regulate your mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. So we'll take a few moments to do the grading, and then we'll have questions.
Yes.
I've been asked to stand when I talk, so I'll stand.
Yes.
So I was wondering, the 4 exercises inside the 16, it has mindfulness of breathing, and then it also has mindfulness of the body. So in your research, did you come across information that talked more about the body scan and the importance of the body scan as opposed to just awareness of breathing without necessarily being aware of the whole body?
I've looked into the 4 steps. Only some study did say the body scan, but they just said observing the sensation. So they're getting into more of mindfulness of the feeling, and I don't want to conduct into that research because it's just too vast and there's not enough time for me to cover. So I would like to narrow down, so just focus of the breathing, which is part of the methods that they do utilize to conduct in certain clinical trials that I've used.
I'm giving you an analogy. Suppose I consider anxiety to be a big block of stone, okay? And mindfulness being a technique consisting of many tools. How do you think this technique, even though you're giving me a lot of details, would really go to the core of this block? And how is it going to affect the other areas of that person's being?
Yes. I feel that even you mentioned the block of anxiety first, we would need to consider anxiety is a sudden attack. So it's not something that it just, takes a few hours slowly creeping on a person. Okay, I'm having an attack right now. No, it's an attack. It's just the fear, the thought is there, and they feel fearful. So if they do the mindfulness over time, they would be able to control their breathing and mind. So when it's arise, they would know to follow their breath, because at that time, either your mind can only focus on one point at a time. Either you are focused on when you're having anxiety attack, or you focus on your breathing. Our mind cannot focus, I'm having an anxiety attack and my breathing at the same time. We cannot do that. We cannot mold like 2 things at a time. Either they're really close, one or things or the other. So if we change our focus of breathing, since it's pure, it can purify our mind over time of practicing. You change your focus into something pure, something neutral. There's nothing for us to grasp on. And when we change our focus, at that time you forget that you having this attack. And through practice, then we would get more used to it. So we would easily more immerse into focusing deeply into our breath. And we focus deeply, the anxiety will go away. And that's how I would say that you would get to the core.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Well, first of all, you did an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And thank you for sending me very early your thesis, so I had the opportunity to read it, so I'm much better prepared and informed on your thesis. You did a very extensive research, and you knew what you were doing. I think you are the right person to compare pharmacotherapy and Buddhism-based mindfulness, right, issues here. A lot of questions come into my mind. I will contain myself. Let me ask you about this. So this whole thing's about how to manage, treat anxiety, right? All kinds of anxiety. You mentioned 4 things or whatever, right?
Yes.
When it comes to defining anxiety, I think the literature may not agree, right? Everything on how it is, right?
Yes.
So conceptually, we have some issue there, and methodologically, how we measure the effectiveness of treating or managing the anxiety, right, from Buddhist perspective, from the pharmacological perspective, right?
Yes.
So how would you address those conceptual and methodological issues?
I would say that my point is to prove is mindfulness, even if we see there's different scales of using, but they're all showing positive outcomes. There must be some benefits. And another that we can see is the monks and nuns. They practice in the lineage of Buddhism for over 2,000 years. And the mindfulness is still exists in the sutra. So there must be some benefits. And it is a way to come, since they did a research, they did a test on the chemistry in our brain, and as well brainwave, as you've read in my thesis, that they found changes in the brain structure as the meditators more experience and practice. So that is a proven right there, because this regard, there's always bias. Conducting can be imperfect in certain corners of points, but in overall, the outcome's positive regardless. Even in each trials, there are different style of mindfulness. Result is still shows positive. So mindfulness is diverse if it's done right. So that's why I use Buddhism as the foundation to prove that they should rely on the practice of Buddhism technique and philosophy as a way for them to incorporate into their studies. And I think that's one way that we can actually increase the confirmations, the fact that mindfulness, especially breathing, can have some benefits for our health beings. Yes.
Otherwise, I'll come back and ask questions.
In your study, I'm curious because I've researched MBSR and its connection with the Lady Sayadaw Vipassana lineage.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, do you have any more details you could share about MBSR and what you found out about that particular
MBSR? Yes. So for that, the MBSR is mindfulness based of stress therapy. So it's a way that I've read in some studies that is a way they use different techniques. They use breathing, they use body scan. And one way I did not use that because it's to mean stress. And in the way body scan, I feel it's a great way to incorporate with the breathing. And then that would be something different if I were to go for MBSR alone. But then I want to focus on mindfulness of breathing. So my trials, they use mindfulness of breathing and the body scan alternating. So they would have like one day mindfulness breathing, follow the breath, next day is body scan, and then the next day they could do compassionate. So they introduce the participants into different fields, and therefore I did not focus on mindfulness of MBSR as the main focus point. I want to be diversified because it can also prove even if you are diverse in the methods, you can still have the same result. So that's a way that I can increase the confirmations for my project. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, it's interesting. Shuam Langmai would teach the body scan and mindfulness of breathing at the same time, whereas in BSR they separate. When you're doing the body scan, you're not practicing awareness of the breathing. So it's interesting how some traditions will combine the breathing and the body scan, and some will separate them out.
Yeah, yes, like S.N. Goenka and Shuang Langmai, they do that, but they do have a separate explanation on just mindfulness breathing, what to do, and they incorporate that into their retreats. So that's why I just want to focus on that, because on the clinical trials, surprisingly, some of them only conduct with mindfulness of breathing alone. They didn't add the body scan. And besides that, they add yoga, which is they're not mindfulness of breathing at all. But if mindfulness breathing is part of it and by itself, it has also proven to be a positive outcome.
Okay, thank you very much. So are there any other questions from the panel?
So how would you define anxiety? And then you think that both the pharmacotherapy and Buddhism mindfulness base can be complementary, right, to treat that or manage that, whatever you want to say. So how would you define anxiety?
For me, anxiety, I would define that it is a perceive of having a negative event due to implicit memory or as some environmental factors. Because environmentals, one of them is social. Here, let me go to slide. It's a social. The type is phobia. It can be due to something they experienced when they're childhood, something they're afraid of, and whenever they see that object, the fear bring back to them. So it can be something external. And then social, sometimes they have their innate process of wanting to fit in, and they don't, and they have a bad experience, and that can be in their memories that when they're encountering a crowd, that they will have such fear arising, even though they're not at that crowd yet. So, and then generalized is they can just worry about a lot of things. So this person's more generalized, I would define more like their activities is hyperactivity. Their brain chemicals sometimes is more than higher than what's the normal level. So in this case, is variety. I would say it can be due to internal and external stimuli. And in terms of the Buddhism and pharmacology, they should be used adjunct, because medication, they have so much side effects. I would not recommend for long term, but it is good in terms of able to bring the level down within a few hours comparing to the mindfulness of therapy. It does take longer. So I would say that they should both start at the same time. And mindfulness therapy, it will eventually help to calm the body by changing the chemicals. At that time, medication should slowly be lessened and weaned off, because due to side effects and the longer of the effect on the mind, like manic attack and panic and also suicidal thoughts. So I would say that in the recommendation, they should be used both same time in the initiation process. Thank you.
For the sake of time, I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Great job, Yvonne. Well done.
I will be talking about my curiosity is I want to see how Buddhism and Taoism view about body and mind. Because coming from a background of a clinician, we, just like Yvonne, we learn a human body and technically physical condition and mental condition in the conventional medicine or anatomy and physiology. So I'm curious how Buddhism and Taoism view about human body and mind. But before I go into that, I would like to give a background. This is how conventional medicine and healthcare system look at human. So we have physical condition, and then we have the psychological, which is mental health. So they break into two separate one. And in terms of physical body, the way the healthcare system process or deal with the health of the person is because they view it physically. The physical body is separate, so they divide each organ into a system, and in treatment they will treat separately like that. Let's say you have a heart condition, and they send you to a cardiologist. And then you have they define neural issues, then go to the neurologist. So that's very fragmented. They don't look at the person as a whole, and therefore the treatment is not very effective. It might be focusing on the very little problem at a time, but then they won't solve the whole thing. So, like Yvonne mentioned earlier, so in terms of just anxiety, it costs that much. So for total healthcare expenses on medication only, it doesn't include surgery, office visit, therapy, all those. So just the medication itself, in 2023, it costs this much. $722.5 billion. That's a lot of money. And then for psychological and technically mental health sector, they would treat either counseling or medication, like Yvonne covered earlier. So that's how we have the situation of our healthcare system. So given that, my research question is, like I said earlier, how do Buddhism and Taoism view about body and mind, and then what and how some practices in each of the two would benefit human body and mind, and how those practices being understood in the modern scientific world. And so I would go into Buddhism's view first, and then go to Taoist view, and then talk about some practices. So there were a concept of nama-rupa in Theravada Buddhism. So the rupa part is talking about the form, and that's somehow equivalent to what anatomy of Western view is physical body. And then the nama part, it has 4 sections. It's talking about sensation, perception, intention of the person, and then the consciousness. So that's many layers compiling on the mental component. So just that, and in Mahayana tradition, so I guess because the Buddha came from the ancient India area, so back then already people have an idea that human body is compiled by the 4 big elements. So because of that, so in the sutra, the Buddha would talk about that, the 4 big elements. So the earth, the water, the fire, the wind. Originally it's the wind. And then in Mahayana tradition, we would hear about the emptiness, the like the void or the space, the empty space. And in reality, that's where physiological exchanges happening. Then there has to be space. So then the mind, in terms of the mind, the word mind, I like the concept Dr. John Fries taught us in the class, that he talked about heart-mind. So because in Chinese language, it's called Shin. In Vietnamese, it's Tâm. It means the heart. So for Westerners, when you think about the mind, you think more about the brain, the thinking part. But in Asian tradition or the ancient traditions, they will be talking about the mind actually is here, is in the heart area. So that's something different. And then they talk about consciousness. So consciousness, and they talk about, so in Sanskrit, they talk about the term chitta, which is, I think in the Chinese language, they use the word heart, meaning the heart. So it translates as chitta. And manas and vijnana, so that's they talk about the 8 consciousness in understanding our mind. The book Thích Nhất Hạnh, he explained, besides the 6 consciousness, the first 5 coming from our 5 senses, and then the 6 coming from our thoughts, and then behind our thoughts, the manas is the 7th. That's the idea of me. The collection try to defend our thinking, that this is my seeing, my hearing. So it's combined with all the memory of, they call it in the store consciousness. So the total of all the knowing. So what interested me, this is something very new to me during my research, is in a Vajrayana tradition, because I'm not familiar with that concept until recently when I joined Sakya Buddha master program. So then I realized they don't just talk vaguely about the body and mind, but they actually have they call Buddhist tantric anatomy. There are solid. They mention about the solid, which is a physical condition, and then so I will jump ahead and go to this one. So they actually have a map out of the channels. This is the book that documents all the anatomy listed in tantric tradition or Tibetan Buddhism Buddhist medicine. So that's something eye-opening for me through this journey of research, and I get to see the channels here has many layers. Some of them are similar with the acupuncture channels. Some of them are very different. So they're talking about the subtle body. So it's still classified as body, but it's not the solid body like coming from the 4 elements. So that's something very interesting. So it's like a bridge between the physical body and the mental body, or the mind, or the conscious. So this is where we as human, we can work on, and then all the practitioner of some tradition will be able to manipulate or regulate. And so now we go to the next one. So roughly, the theory in Buddhism is as you've known, talking about the 12 dependent originations. And then the idea of the suffering, the Four Noble Truths, the suffering, the cause of suffering, and the how to end it. And there's a path, the Eightfold Path. So then now it comes to, so I jump to, for the purpose, for the reason of the time, so I will go straight to the practices. So in Buddhism, they're on a like practical basis in religious or for home, for calming, just basic calming of the mind. Most of people will do prostration, and so this is very simple, easy to do. You just bow to the altar, to the Buddha, or if they belong to different religion, they can bow to their figure of worship. So it activates the whole body, and then at the same time, it will help people to focus on the mind. It's a different way of focusing. Especially, it's easier for people who are very nervous or lose concentration. Then they just recite the name of the Buddha, then it helps them. So that's an easy one. And then when we're busy in the morning, we can just bow 10 bows or 20 bows, and that's practical. And then the second one is the chanting. And this part, I think, in Pure Land tradition, it's more popular, and I like the idea of walking around, and then they chant Om Mani Padme Hum, because somehow the sound from that really helps calming people. And then, like you see in Tibetan Buddhism, it's very popular, and now it's popular all in America. Even someone in different religion, they still can apply. And then, in terms of the most comprehensive part is about the meditation tradition. Their Theravada tradition that Yvonne covers some, talk about the mindfulness of the breath. And I'm sorry. Somehow okay, I got it. Okay. Sorry. So these are the channels. So we go back to Zen tradition. Back to Vipassana. There are, Yvonne already mentioned about the 16 exercises of mindfulness, and so now I go to Zen tradition. So there's a position here. So in terms of the channels, sitting like this will help center this is one of the main chakra that the meditation practitioner will focus on, and that will help the mind actually calming down. The breathing up to, because when you breathe in, it goes all the way here. When we exhale naturally, the pulling force will create that wind, that force to move. So microscopically, it makes the micro vessels very active. So it makes us awake and calm down at the same time. So particularly in practice, this picture helps me a lot because the Tibetan 9 round breathing, so we can apply before our real meditation session, whatever style we do, but this is just like a warm-up, and it helps clear out the channels very easily. So then we go to the Taoist concept. So when Buddhism talking about the 12 originating dependent originations, so Taoism have the theory of yin yang as an overall explanation of our existence. And then within that, human is a microcosmos where they also have 3 treasures. So the essence is Jing, Qi, and Shen is a spirit. So the word Shen they use is not the word heart. Shen is different from mind, the Xin. So in this one, it's closer to the function of the brain, the way we would understand. It's mentality. So, and they're all concerned. This one is the map of their internal alchemy. So when they practice, this is the lower dantian, the lower chakra, and then it go up and up and up. And then so people will, if they unblock that upper part, that's considered enlightenment. And their focus is the flow with nature. And then also they apply, instead of the 4 big elements, the way Buddhists view about human body. So in Taoism, they look at the human body from the angle of 5 elements. And the organs will go accordingly. And therefore, when one of the elements is out of balance, then the doctor will, or the master, if they are doing some martial arts, then they will correct or they try to rebalance it based on that principle of the 5 elements. And so in terms of practice, the one that's popular is the Tai Chi Chuan, or in short, in America, we call it Tai Chi. And then Qigong. The Qigong is somewhat similar to Buddhist breathing exercise. And then the Taoist internal alchemy is very, very close to yoga, the ancient yoga practice. And especially the Taoists, they talking about the aim for immortality or longevity. So they really seriously, they practice the breathing at certain style with certain concepts. So I just show some of the posture. When they practice, they really look for the way the channels and the points, they call them main points, and to rotate and the grounding. So the standing here, this master, he's the one who popularized Tai Chi in the U.S., in the world actually. He's someone toward the, his lifetime is not so far from us, so it's toward the end of 19th century to early 20th century. So the Taoist cultivation, this is the map. So they have the idea of the cauldron, the heat, and go up, up, up like this. So this one is very similar to in the ancient Indian practice of yoga. They have the same concept, but their point or channel description is slightly different. However, they have certain matching information that make us think there has to be the reality, the reality of the matter, that they're similar, they're talking about the same thing, they just use different words, different mapping. So through the practices and all the research they've done, then these are the benefits. One of the benefits that Yvonne covered earlier is this. And then from my concern, I really like this benefit about it, increase the flexibility and the balance, because it's very important for elders, because we all will go aging. So losing balance will cause falling and stiffness and all that. So these will help us to focus. We have more motivation to practice one way or the other. So these two gemstones of the East, they have similarity, is that they have an idea of body and mind connected, and they're inseparable. And so one will affect the other. And so they have the methods is self-cultivating. They both emphasize on we have to do it. So, and they all use breath as that's a common part. And then so, however, in Buddhism, the focus is to get out of samsara. That's a big difference with Taoism. In Taoists, they enjoy being with the nature, and they want to live as long as possible. And so they aim for, just like Holly mentioned earlier about Bodhisattva way, the Bodhisattva do everything, do a lot of things, but in Taoism, they have the word Wu Wei, no action. But that doesn't mean they don't do anything. They actually do things, but they don't attach to what they do. So in a way, it's slightly different concept, but it has some similarity there too. So their purpose toward the end is merging with the Tao. Versus the Buddhism, the aiming is to get out of the samsara. So that's a very big difference. With that, I come to my conclusion, and thank you for your time.
Okay, so we'll take a few moments for the grading, and then we'll have questions.
Sure, thank you.
So one question I had was, given we're in the Western society and the Western healthcare system informs how we have education, and if we were going to have a Buddhist school or a Taoist school, like an elementary school for kids and teenagers, and we were going to integrate these teachings into the curriculum, what would you, if you could wave a magic wand, what would be some of the activities or classes you would want to be taught in the school?
Yes, thank you, Professor, for that. Actually, that's what in my paper, for future outlook or future study, I mentioned that we need to incorporate that knowledge, that ancient knowledge, into the school system from elementary. So we can start the early session in the morning, like before class, they breathing for maybe 2 minutes, and then they be aware of their body, like a mini body scan kind of session, short for small kids within 5 minutes. And then we can incorporate, like there's one, instead of music class, there's an option for them to learn some like yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, those type of activities. And that's, yes, I forgot to say, that's for the future outlook. I recommend it, or that the whole society, the mainstream, need to be aware of this knowledge about the connection or the subtle body of our existence. And then we need to pay more attention to that rather than just the physical or just the mental, because sometimes something becomes psychological, then it's kind of too late. So we have to the kids has to learn it and to be aware when the middle parts, the subtle body, the energetic body, then when something goes wrong, the kids or the person can sense it, and then we'll have certain training so they know how to navigate or unblock the blockage through breathing or through certain stretches. Like in Tai Chi move, then things are flowy again, then that person won't have either physical illness or the mental illness. So that's my recommendation in the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was one of your strongest points, was that the Western system is missing the middle place, right?
Yeah, the middle, the bridge.
Yeah. And that seems like, would you say one of your main findings is that that missing middle, the bridge between the physical body and the mental, that's the main thing, one of the main findings from your research?
Yes, that's the one I found. Before because I practiced Tai Chi, so I know it works. The Chi does move when we do certain movements or practice breathing, but I didn't know how to explain it, or it's like a wish that people can know, but then in mainstream, people are not aware of it. Even their doctor, they're not aware of to show their patient these simple techniques to manage their illness. So through this study or research, I found that there are more solid evidence, there are more sources to convince people, and many research document the benefits of just simple breathing or Tai Chi. Tai Chi and Qigong, they did some, actually they did a lot of studies, and they measure also in the MRI or EEG, the brain scans, and sometimes they took the blood sample and they measure certain substances in there as a marker to reduce or the inflammation or the constraint of the heart. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the panel?
Hello. First, a good presentation. Thank you. I'll try to ask just one question, looking at the time there. I really appreciate, you're sort of like creating, I believe, it's not that it's not there, we need more awareness of how these Buddhist and Taoist perspectives on body and mind could provide the holistic, right, understanding of body and mind, because every one of us has got that, right? Yes. There's something missing in the Western science, however well developed. The whole body is fragmented, right? You are specialist in this little thing that you can fix it, then the rest, okay, send somebody else. So I think that's very important contribution or awareness we could bring. But then when it comes to practical applications, of course, I'm not an expert on this. I find a lot of challenges. I don't know how we can address that. the Western healing is based on what they call scientific methods and discoveries and testing and all of that, very empirical studies, and all these healing traditional practices of in Buddhist or Taoism, wherever, they are more like a belief system. You believe it's like more like a, no scientific evidence, so to speak, right? So to be able to bring these two together, so what can Buddhist healing practitioners and Taoist practitioners can do, right, to convince in a little way the West that at least keep open-minded and, consider this. What do you think?
There are studies done about actually 15 years ago in UCI. They measure Qigong master, and another one is Zen master. So there are two group of control, and then the normal people. So they measure what they call biomagnetic energy. So with the advance of the technology, they can create the tools to measure. They clip on the fingertips, and then they measure, and then it will show the result as light. So for us, like normal people, non-scientific people, we can see the results. And since then until now, there are many fields, they collaboration between the technical part, like they create machines, they create software, and they sense certain part, like they sense the body heat, they sense the certain, they call pheromones, certain chemicals that our body release, and then that's how they use as a marker. Besides blood pressure, brain waves in EEG, and then, or they can measure the way that before and after. Let's say the program, like Yvonne mentioned, they have like some weeks, 8 weeks or so, and then they measure before and after based on the number of medication the patient take or the subject of study takes. Harvard actually had a study on Tai Chi practitioners for Parkinson's, and they found out that those who did Tai Chi, they actually could cut their medication by half dosage. Yeah, so there have been documents here and there, but those studies is very small, a sample group. So, but there are. So that means we just need to push a little further. Instead of just the scientist or the Zen master or the Qigong master, we need to bring that awareness into school settings or parenting or some prevention, illness prevention type of health fair. That will help.
Okay, so that's
yes.
I hope you cited those studies in your thesis.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
I had another question. Did you find in looking at Chan Buddhism or Zen Buddhism how they had already started combining Buddhism and Taoism?
Yes. Actually, Zen or Chan Buddhism, they themselves, because of the historical and location, has been in China or Japan or Vietnam. Or Korea, when Chan or Zen meditation tradition being spread to those nations, they already have Taoism as their base practice or belief system. So most of Zen masters, they actually apply the technique, because in Zen tradition, they don't just rely on sutra to learn. They learn from their masters. So apparently the master, the monks or the nuns would teach their disciples certain techniques in their meditation, and that's already have some components of Taoism. Yes. So I found that. Thank you for, I forgot to bring that up. That's a very interesting point. Yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much, An. Wonderful job.
Thank you, the panel.
So thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see if Master would like to say any concluding remarks.
Dạ, buổi bao giờ luận án hôm nay chúng ta khép lại ngang đây, và chúng ta sẽ gặp lại vào 6 giờ 30 phút tối mai với 3 sinh viên tiếp theo. Giờ đây xin mời các vị chúng ta đứng lên hồi hướng. Chúng sinh vô biên thể nguyện độ phiền, thân thế nguyện đoạn phép mong vô lượng thể nguyện hợp Phật đạo vô thượng thế. Bye bye, good night.